The sun was dipping low over the horizon as Emma Carver sat in the passenger seat of her husband's car, the road behind them stretching long and empty. She had trusted him, believed in their plans. 2 years married, a small home in suburban Ohio, a life they'd sketched together. But as the engine idled and the air turned cooler, she realized something had shifted. They had been silent for nearly 10 minutes. His hands loosely clasped the steering wheel, his eyes ahead, the quiet thicker than friction. Emma stared out the window at the bare trees and the speed of headlights approaching from behind. She tried to speak. "Are we okay?" she said softly, but the words died in her throat. Then he said it. "Do whatever you want." His voice had no softness. It held neither plea nor explanation, just the motion of rejection. He pulled over onto the gravel shoulder, stopped the car. The right rear wheel sank slightly in the loose rock. Emma saw it, felt it. Under her feet, she felt the solidity shift, as though the ground she stood on gave way. She glanced at her purse in the seat next to her, her phone, her ID, her hope of resolution, all inside reach, yet none offered rescue. He didn't open the door. He didn't say more. The engine continued to hum, not moving, waiting. She opened the door. Shoes hit gravel. The door swung shut behind her, and he drove off. In that moment, Emma realized she was on her own. No counted hours of love, no whispered promises, no saved-up future. She stood by the roadside as his tail lights merged with the darkening sky. Behind her, one car, one life she thought she had. Ahead of her, silence. She didn't scream. She didn't cry yet. She nodded to herself and shut off the car door. That action echoed. It wasn't just the door shutting. It was her old life. If you're still here right now, it means you sensed that moment. Type "still here" in the comments so I'll know who truly listens to the end. And if you want more stories like this, hit the like button right now. The gravel's chill seeping under her shoes. Emma took a deep breath and stepped away from the car. The faint hum of traffic receded. Night was approaching, and with it the questions she'd refused to ask. How did it come to this? What had happened behind the scenes of their marriage? She thought of their apartment, the white walls, his office, the Sunday breakfasts, the promise of someday. Those scenes flickered like an old film in her mind, but then came the little shifts, the silence after he got home, the phone calls he hid, the times he left without saying goodbye. Tonight had been the result. She walked slowly, avoiding the broken edges of the gravel shoulder. The sky above her turned purple, then black. Streetlights flickered ahead. She considered, should she call someone? But she realized, the phone is inside the locked car he'd just driven away. No wallet, no phone, no backup. Still, her feet kept moving. She passed a sign. Miller Road, next 5 miles. She knew that road. They had used it on quiet evenings. Now she walked it alone. Memories burst in her mind, laughing with him at dinner, him brushing her hair back, him saying, "We'll figure it out." The irony now harsher than any cold wind. She reached a small bus stop. No bench, just a stop sign and a single lamp that flickered. She sat down on the curb, crossed her legs, tried to steady her breath. The hum of the city miles away, the great dark closing around her. She thought, I need to go somewhere safe. But safe where? The plan they had made no longer existed. Her key ring missing. Her bank card in his coat pocket. She realized he had stripped the safety net without warning. And in that moment, a car came from the opposite direction. Headlights illuminated her figure. The car slowed as it approached the bus stop. She recognized the make, a black sedan. The driver glanced at her, long, steady. She watched him watch her. A brief flash of concern, maybe, or curiosity. Then the car passed and disappeared. The moment left a question. Why did someone slow for just a second? Was he seeing more than a stranded woman? Did he know how this kind of night ends? Emma didn't wait for the answer. She pulled her coat tighter and listened for the distant roar of traffic. She realized she was caught between two states, the car that took her place and the darkness that was swallowing the road ahead. She closed her eyes, just for a second. In that second, she saw their kitchen, the yellow mug he gave her, the photo of them at the lake, the promise written in ink, love forever. She opened her eyes and watched the lamp above blink. No one came. She stood up, checked the road, decided she would walk until she found something, a phone booth, a gas station, a passerby, anything. As she walked, the wind picked up, rustled leaves, cut across the road like a knife. She felt its edge. It mirrored the break in her life. And behind her, somewhere, the car drove farther. She didn't look back. She kept walking. The air was colder now. Each breath turned white in the night, each step slower than the last. Emma followed the road's shoulder until she reached the glow of a distant gas station. A single fluorescent light hummed above the pumps, flickering every few seconds. The sign read, Learner's Fuel and Service, open 24 hours. She hesitated before walking in. Her reflection in the glass door startled her. Hair tangled, face streaked with dust, no purse, no coat buttons fastened. Inside, the attendant glanced up from his phone. Bathrooms for customers only, he said without looking long. I just need to use your phone, Emma answered. Please. He sighed, nodded toward a payphone near the vending machines. If it still works, he said. She lifted the receiver. No dial tone. She tried again. Nothing. Behind her, a woman's voice. You okay? Emma turned. The voice came from a lady in her late 40s, wearing a faded denim jacket, her hair pulled back in a loose bun. She had a coffee in one hand, car keys in the other. I got dropped off, Emma said, her voice cracking. My husband left. I don't have my phone. The woman set down her coffee. Left you? Out here? Emma nodded. He said, do whatever you want, then drove off. The woman's face changed. Concern turned to something sharper, something that felt like recognition. Wait, she said quietly. What's your husband's name? Michael Carver. The woman froze. Her fingers tightened around her keys. She exhaled slowly. I knew it, she whispered. Emma blinked. You knew him? The woman looked at her fully now. Yes, she said. Because I'm the woman he used to say that to. Silence filled the station. The attendant looked up, sensing tension but saying nothing. The two women stood there, the hum of the lights the only sound between them. Emma's stomach turned. "What do you mean, used to?" The woman sighed. "I was married to him 5 years ago. Before he moved out of Dayton, he left me the same way, on a road just like this." Em's breath caught. She stepped back, shaking her head. "That's not possible." "I thought the same," the woman said, "until I saw your face just now." They stared at each other. The similarity in stories made the moment heavier than either could bear. Emma whispered, "Why are you here?" The woman smiled faintly, bitterly. "Because I never stopped looking for answers." She reached into her bag, pulled out a small envelope, and handed it to Emma. "You might want to see this before you decide what to do next." Inside the envelope was a photo, an old wedding picture, the same man, Michael, smiling next to the woman holding a bouquet of blue hydrangeas. The date printed on the border, June 12, 2018. Anna stared at it, her hands trembling. "He told me his first wife died." The woman looked away. "He told me the same thing about his first wife." The fluorescent light flickered again. The hum louder now. Emma's voice shook. "Who are you?" "My name's Laura Fitch," she said, "and you're not the first." Emma felt her knees weaken. She leaned against the vending machine, trying to steady herself. "Why would he do this?" she whispered. Laura looked at her calmly. "Because Michael doesn't leave women, he replaces them. He erases them one at a time." A silence lingered between them. Emma wanted to ask 100 questions, but her voice failed. The sound of a car door slamming outside cut through the moment. Both women turned toward the window. A dark SUV had pulled into the lot, headlights still on, engine running. Laura's face went pale. "That's his car," she said. Emma's pulse quickened. "He came back?" Laura shook her head slowly. "He doesn't come back to apologize." Through the glass, they saw him step out. Same black coat, same calm posture. He looked around, scanning the station, eyes settling on the doorway. Laura whispered, "Stay behind me." Emma froze. Every sound, the buzz of the light, the squeak of the door hinge, the footsteps, burned into her memory. Michael entered, expression unreadable. His eyes found Laura first, then Emma. "So," he said quietly, "you two finally met." No one spoke. He smiled faintly. "That saves me some explaining." Laura's voice broke the silence. "What did you do to the others, Michael?" He chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Still with the drama," he said. "I told you to move on." Emma stepped forward. "Why are you here?" Michael shrugged. "Because you still have my car keys. You may close your eyes." "Your car keys?" He nodded toward her coat pocket. She looked down. The keys, the ones from the passenger side, must have fallen when she stepped out earlier. "You can keep the car," she said. "I don't want anything." Michael smirked. "You don't get to choose what you want anymore." Laura reached for her phone. Michael's voice sharpened. "Don't." The attendant looked up again, but didn't move. He could sense the tension, the quiet danger building like static. Michael stepped closer, lowering his voice. Both of you, come outside. We're going to settle this." Laura didn't move. "You're not taking her," she said. He laughed softly. "Taking? You think I'm kidnapping my own wife?" Emma's hands shook. "You left me," she said. He smiled again, a smile that had no warmth. "And yet here you are, still talking to me." Behind them, the fume of the refrigerator drowned out the silence. Emma felt the air tightening around her. The choice pressed in: stay inside and risk whatever this was becoming, or step outside and end it on her own terms. Laura whispered, "Don't move." Emma's eyes darted between them. The man who abandoned her, and the woman who once loved him. Michael took another step closer. The door chimed as someone entered from the side. The attendant's co-worker returned from a smoke break, holding the door open long enough for the night air to sweep through. In that split second, Michael turned his head. Laura grabbed Emma's wrist. "Run," she whispered. They bolted toward the back exit, the door slamming behind them. Gravel scattered under their shoes. They didn't look back. The sound of footsteps followed. Heavy, fast, certain. They reached the edge of the lot, darted behind a row of parked trucks. Emma's breath came in gasps. Laura pressed a finger to her lips. Quiet. The night was still, except for the faint echo of footsteps on asphalt, then silence. They waited. Seconds passed. Then a car door slammed. The SUV's engine roared to life. Headlights swept across the lot and faded into the distance. Emma exhaled. "He's gone." Laura shook her head. "No, he's never gone." The words hung there, heavy and final. Emma stared down at the photo still in her hand, the one from 2018. Her reflection shimmered against it, and she realized she was standing in the same kind of frame just years later, another woman caught in the same picture. She closed the envelope slowly, her heart pounding. Whatever this man was hiding, it wasn't over, not yet. The parking lot felt too bright after the SUV left. The station lights cut sharp lines across the asphalt and made everything look like a stage set waiting for the next scene. Laura kept her eyes on the road while Emma slipped the photo back into the envelope and tucked it under her coat. The night carried that thin chill that seeks through clothes and sits on your bones. They stood there for a while, listening. A moth tapped the glass door near the ice freezer. The pump screen blinked an error message no one cared about. "We should not stay here," Laura said. "He will circle back. He always circles back." Her tone made it sound like a road rule. Emma nodded. "Where do we go?" Laura looked at the clerk through the window, then at the side street that split off behind the station. "My car is 2 blocks away," she said. "I never park near the cameras. Habit?" She started walking, fast but steady, and Emma followed. They kept to the shadow side of the storefronts. Nail salon, closed pizza place, a coin laundry with a single panel light left on. A small town on the edge of somewhere bigger. An M beside sing, the, kumapo, il, el, el. Laura's car was an old silver sedan with a dent on the rear fender and a sticker on the bumper that had peeled until only the shape of a word remained. She unlocked it and told Emma to sit low. The engine coughed to life like it was reluctant to be dragged into this night. They pulled onto the side street and took 2 right turns before hitting the main road. In the rearview mirror, nothing but darkness, and a pair of headlights that did not follow. Emma spoke first. How did you know to carry that photo? Laura kept her eyes ahead. I never throw things away anymore, she said, and I keep proof close. The silence after that was thicker than the one in the car before. The kind that holds 100 questions but knows none of them are safe yet. They drove into a part of town where the streetlights were more reliable and the houses sat closer together. They passed a school with a low brick facade and a football field behind it. 2 figures walked a dog under the trees. It looked like an ordinary life, the kind Emma thought she had. Laura turned into a lot behind a 3-story building with a faded sign that said Hawthorne Apartments. She killed the lights before she pulled into a slot. Stay down for a second, she said. They sat in darkness while the engine ticked as it cooled. After a minute, Laura nodded. Come on. Her apartment was on the 2nd floor at the end of a narrow hallway that smelled faintly of dust and detergent. Inside, the space was clean and careful, a bookshelf with court records and paperbacks, a small table with a lamp that cast a warm circle, a corkboard on the wall with notes and dates pinned in lines. There were names on those cards, some crossed out, some circled. Emma read a few. Kara Nguyen, Melissa James, B. Rogers. The dates under them ranged across years. Emma felt her chest tighten again. How many? Laura did not answer right away. Enough for a pattern, she said. She put water on the stove and handed Emma a towel and a sweatshirt that smelled like laundry soap. Sit, Laura said. We need to plan the next hour. Emma sat and stared at her hands. They were shaking. She pressed them together on her lap and waited for the heat to loosen them. Laura pulled a shoebox from under the couch. Inside were folders and a prepaid phone in a clear bag. She laid the folders out on the table like cards. This is what I know, she said. He moves every 2 to 3 years. He prefers medium cities where he can be new but not watched. He keeps a day job that looks steady but is easy to leave. Sales, warehouse, logistics, seasonal contracting. He socializes through work, avoids neighbors, volunteers for errands so he can be alone. He pays attention to phones, to bank cards, to keys. He does not yell unless it helps him look normal. He is patient. He waits for trust to ripen, and then he picks it clean. It is not about money only. It is about control. She slid one folder toward Emma. Inside was a public records printout from Michael Carver. There were addresses in Dayton, in Lima, in a suburb on the edge of Indianapolis. One entry had a note in red pen, alias check, M. Carter. Another note under it, cross-match to M. Curver, utilities file. Emma touched the page like it might spark. He told me his credit was ruined from helping a cousin, she said. Laura gave a sad little smile. He told me it was from helping a brother. The water started to hiss. Laura poured 2 mugs and added sugar without asking. Emma took a sip and felt it land like something solid. Laura continued. He has done this before. He will change the story depending on what you question. If you ask about money, it is the bank's fault. If you ask about schedules, it is the job's fault. If you ask about family, it is grief. He keeps the stories just loose enough to move them. People do not check unless they feel unsafe. He makes sure you feel confused, not unsafe. Emma thought about the months before tonight. The locked phone screen, the extra hours, the sudden softness followed by cold absence. She remembered the day he suggested they switch to a joint account that he managed because he was better with numbers. She remembered the way he held her shoulders, and told her she needed rest when she said she felt off. It sounded caring then. It sounded like a lid now. I went to the police 2 years ago, Laura said. I told them what he did. They said it was a domestic matter and to speak to a civil attorney. I filed anyway. The case did not go far because he was just careful enough. She tapped the corkboard with her fingernail. That is why I keep names, in case someone listens. Emma asked about the names. Who was Kara? Laura pulled another folder. Karen Wynne met him in a hardware store. He fixed a shelf for her when they were neighbors. They dated. He moved in. Within 6 months, she was missing 2 credit cards and a necklace from her grandmother. She found the cards in a shoe under a towel in the hall closet, cut up and taped together like a joke. She confronted him. He told her she was confused and had probably cut them up herself during one of her anxious episodes. She doubted her memory for weeks. She left after a year. 2 months later, she reported that her car title had been transferred without her consent. It took a year to unwind. Emma closed her eyes. She could hear Michael's voice say the word confused, as if he had a right to define it. She opened them and stared at the corkboard. What about Melissa? Laura nodded at a note with a date 3 years back. Melissa James met him online. He told her he had never been married. They had pictures on a boat. He used that picture for at least 2 profiles. After a while, he asked to borrow money for a course he said would double his pay. She gave it. He never took the course. She started asking questions. He proposed, then moved out 3 weeks later and blocked her. She sent me a message last year after she found my post. My post. Laura pulled out a stack of printed forum pages. She'd written a careful message in a support group for financial abuse survivors under a pseudonym. She described the pattern, the timing, the lines he repeated when confronted. Women started to reply. Some had different names for him. Some had the same. One of the replies had only 2 sentences. Check the storage unit on Harlan. He keeps a lockbox there. Emma felt her pulse shift. Does he still have it? Laura looked at the clock on the oven. If he follows his pattern, he keeps the box until he feels safe with the new life and then empties it. If he was ready to leave you tonight, that box might still have what he does not want at the house. She opened the shoebox again and pulled out a small tag with a row of numbers and a key number scratched in. I took this photo months ago, she said quietly. I could not afford to rent the unit to open it without drawing attention, but we can check if the box still exists. If it does, we will know by morning. Emma stared at the grain of the table. Her thoughts came in clipped images. The bank login screen, the drawer where she kept the spare key to the filing cabinet, the last time she saw her passport. She looked at Laura. He froze my account tonight. I could not log in when we stopped at the station. I tried to, even without a phone. It just would not take my password. That means he is accelerating, Laura said. He must have triggered a change earlier today. He probably used a device you did not know you had authorized. We need to get you a clean phone and a new password routine. We also need copies of your identity documents. Do you have photos of your ID anywhere? Emma shook her head. He told me not to keep pictures of that on my phone for safety. Laura nodded like she'd heard this line before. We will fix that by tomorrow. Tonight we gather proof where he cannot erase it. Emma asked about going to a hotel. Laura shook her head. He checks the obvious places first. He will ping your email and see which ads get served to you. He will guess your moves. He has a good memory for your habits. We do not follow your habits. tonight. She stood and opened a drawer near the sink. Inside were 3 prepaid phones, still in packaging. She opened one, snapped in a card, and turned it on. The screen glowed blue for a moment and then settled. She wrote a number on a sticky note and handed it to Emma. "This is yours until we secure something better. Do not log into anything. Do not tell anyone except one safe contact. We will choose that person after we confirm they are not in his network." Emma thought of her sister. She lived 2 states away and had always been the cautious one. But Emma hesitated. He had called her sister from Emma's phone last Christmas to arrange a surprise. He knew the number. He knew the voice. She set the sticky note down. "Let us wait an hour," she said. Laura approved with a nod. "While we wait, there is someone else you should see." She pulled a thin folder from the bottom of the stack and set it apart, like a card she had saved for the right moment. A copy of a marriage certificate slid out. The names read Michael Carver and Audra Lane. The date was recent, less than 8 months ago. Emma felt the room tilt. She steadied herself on the table's edge. "He married again." Laura shook her head. "He registered a ceremony in a different county. The witness names do not match. The address on the license belongs to a mailbox service that sells condo addresses. It may have been real. It may have been a rehearsal. Either way, it proves he is not what he says he is." The edges of the certificate were highlighted to show a pattern of mismatched numbers. Laura had circled them that looked like a map of small lies. Emma took a slow breath and set the paper down like it might break. "Why me?" she asked. Laura answered without looking away. "Because you are careful. Because you believe people can be better if you try harder. Because he could predict that you would not slam a door." The answer landed with a weight that felt true. The clock ticked over to midnight. The building settled with a small creak. A car outside passed and sent a sweep of headlights through the blinds. Laura checked the peephole and turned the deadbolt. "We will rest for 20 minutes, she said. "Then we will drive by Harlan's storage and check the activity monitor. They leave a small light in the panel when a unit is opened after hours. If his was open tonight, we will know he is cleaning fast." Emma lay on the couch and stared at the ceiling. The texture looked like a map of some forgotten island. She traced a path with her eyes and listened to the muted sounds of the building. A neighbor laughed once, then fell quiet. Pipes ticked. Someone upstairs walked to the kitchen and back. Ordinary life pressed on while hers balanced on a thin wire. She must have slept for a minute, because the next thing she knew, the kettle was hissing again and Laura was at the window without turning on a light. "It is time," Laura said. Emma sat up and put her shoes back on. Her hand brushed the envelope with the photo. She tucked it into the inside pocket of the sweatshirt like a small shield. They left through the back stairs and kept to the alley until they reached the lot. The night had thinned, the kind of hour when even cars seemed to talk less. Laura drove without the radio and took streets that made no sense until you realized she was checking mirrors and avoiding lines of sight. When they turned onto Harlan, the road narrowed and the signs became old. The storage facility sat behind a chain-link fence with a keypad post and a small office window dark to the world. Rows of metal doors stretched into shadow-like ribs. Laura parked on the street and killed the lights. They watched. A single security camera panned and then settled. A blinking red dot on the panel near the gate pulsed in a steady rhythm that said, "Armed but quiet." Laura nodded at the far end of the property. "See that tiny window near the maintenance shed?" she said. "That is where the interior hall panel glows if a unit is opened after hours. If there is a light, someone has a code or a key they should not be using." They waited. A train blew a long horn somewhere beyond the trees. Emma wrapped her arms around herself and pressed her shoulder into the seat until she felt the fabric bunch. She imagined the lockbox inside the unit. She pictured documents like small bones stacked in a tin container, a passport that did not belong to him, a folder with her name on it. She felt a cold certainty that her life was already transformed into paper in a place like this. A car turned onto Harlan. Its lights swept across the fence and through the row doors into brief relief. It slowed when it passed the gate, then kept going. Emma did not exhale until it disappeared. Laura checked the tiny window again. Nothing. Then, as if on a cue they could not hear, a soft glow appeared behind the glass. It was faint, like a night light, but clear. Laura leaned in. "That is the panel," she said. "Someone just opened a unit." Emma grabbed the envelope tighter. "If it is him," she whispered. "If it is him," Laura said, "we learn what he still fears." They watched for movement. The gate did not open. No engine hum, no footsteps. Still, the light stayed on. Laura reached for the prepaid phone and typed a number without looking down. The screen showed a text thread labeled "Watch." She sent a single period. A minute later, the phone buzzed. A reply appeared. "Activity recorded. Row B, door 23. Emma read the line twice. "Who is that?" Laura answered in the same even tone she had used all night. "A friend who owes me a favor and likes to keep the neighborhood quiet." They could not see row B from the street. It sat behind the office and turned inward. Laura made a decision and started the car. "We will circle the block and park by the old lumber lot. If he leaves on foot, he will cut through there." She pulled away, turned once, then again, and killed the lights near a broken fence with a sign that said "Keep out" in letters that had faded with the seasons. They waited. The tiny panel glow fell out of view. A figure appeared at the corner of the storage fence, a man in a dark jacket carrying a banker's box at chest level. He moved fast and careful, like someone who had practiced the distance between 2 points enough times to trust his feet. He reached the gate, set the box down, punched a code, and slipped through when the fence clicked. He did not look up. He did not scan the street. He picked up the box and walked toward Harlan with the air of a person finishing a chore. He was not Michael. His build was different, and his gait had a small hitch on the left. He carried the box like it was precious to someone else. He reached the curb and turned right, away from where they waited. Laura tapped the steering wheel with the side of her thumb and thought out loud, "Courier or cleaner? Either way, he is a link." They let him go. They needed the path he took, not the chase tonight. Laura started the car and eased out, keeping one street between them and his. They tracked him to a block with older houses and porch lights that clicked on with motion. He stopped at a light blue house with a sagging step and a fresh lock on the door. He knocked twice in a pattern that felt practiced. The door opened. A woman took the box and stepped back. The porch light hit her face and held it for a second. Emma leaned forward until her seatbelt tugged. The woman looked like a photo she had seen in the folder on the table. The same eyes, the same scar line near the brow. It was Melissa James. The door closed. The porch went dark. Emma turned to Laura. "You said Melissa messaged last year." Laura nodded. "She did. She moved out of state for a while." She wrote last month that she was coming back to handle old files. She did not tell me where. She wanted to be done with all of it. Maybe this is her way of finishing. Emma thought about the box in the woman's hands. If the box came from row B, then Melissa had access to the unit, or to the person who did, which meant the unit might not be his alone, which meant a new kind of risk. They waited another 5 minutes that felt like a full hour. Then Laura whispered, "Time to leave." They drove away without headlights for 1 block and then joined the regular flow. The city was emptying itself toward morning. On a corner near a closed diner, an older man swept the sidewalk as if it mattered that it be clean before sunup. It made the night feel less endless. Back at the apartment, Laura locked the door, checked the chain, and set a chair under the handle. Emma sank into the couch. Her bones felt hollow from the weight of everything that had shifted. Laura set the prepaid phone on the table and slid it toward her. "If anything happens, press call and leave it open," she said. "I will hear you." Emma nodded. The phone buzzed once on its own, a soft sound that still jerked both their heads toward it. No name on the screen, just a number with no city tag. Emma looked at Laura. "Answer," Laura mouthed. Emma pressed the green icon and lifted it to her ear. The line carried a breath, and then a woman's voice, steady, low, certain. "Do not go back to your apartment," the woman said. "He is waiting across the street. He has the spare key you hid behind the soil bag. And he is not alone." And swallowed. "Who is this?" The voice paused like it was considering how much to give away. "I am the woman he never mentions," she said. "I saw you at the station, and I know what is in row B." The room felt smaller with the voice in Emma's ear. She kept her breath shallow so the caller would not hear it shaking. The woman spoke like a person who had practiced this, who had waited for the right moment to cut a wire. "Do not go back to your apartment. He is across the street in the sedan with the cracked taillight. He has the spare key from the garden bag, and he is not alone." Emma looked at Laura. Laura motioned for speaker. Emma tapped the icon and set the phone on the table. "Who are you?" Laura asked. A pause rode the line. "You do not know my name," the woman said. "That is on purpose. I know his. I know his habits. I know what is missing right now. And I know what he thinks he put beyond reach in row B. He was careful. He was not perfect." "What is in row B?" Laura asked. The woman exhaled like a swimmer breaking the surface. "Originals," she said. "Boxes with utility bills that tie his other names to this county. A folder with scans of driver licenses that do not match the faces he used. A notebook with 3 columns that track dates, amounts, and phrases he repeats when questioned. If you have the keys to that, you have his script. If he learns you are onto it, he will burn it by morning. You saw a courier tonight. That means he is already moving pieces." "How do you know the courier?" Laura asked. "I watch people who walk like they are carrying something that is not theirs," the woman said. "I have watched for a long time. You can call me Eva. That is not what he called me. It will do for tonight." Emma leaned closer to the phone. "Why are you helping us?" A quiet sound came through, like a chair being pulled across a floor far away. "Because I needed someone to answer the phone the night he turned the latch on my door," Eva said. "No one did. That is not going to happen to you. Listen very carefully. You have a window of 2 hours before he decides he cannot control the narrative and he switches from patient to reckless. If you want proof, you go now. If you want safety, you stay put, and he erases what you need. There is no perfect option. There is only the next one. Laura walked to the door and checked the peephole. The hallway was empty and stale. She came back and kept her voice even. If we go, he could follow. If we stay, we lose the file. If we call the police, they will ask for dates, and he will have an alibi lined up by dawn. Eva did not argue. You already know the shape of this, she said. He uses the gap between what is wrong and what is illegal. He lives there. Do not leave that decision to him. Emma pictured the gate at the storage lot and the small window that glowed when someone opened a unit after hours. She pictured the banker's box that slipped into Melissa's arms. She pictured her own signature on a form she did not remember signing. The idea of staying still felt worse than the idea of moving. She nodded. We go, she said. Laura met her eyes and nodded once. Then we go. Ava spoke again, brisk now. You will need 3 things. A car that is not registered to either of you. A pair of gloves that fit, and a reason to be there if you meet anyone. The reason is simple. Your unit number, by error, you misread the digits. You will have a piece of paper in your pocket with a fake 7 that looks like a sloppy 2. Most attendants barely look up at this hour. If they do, annoyance will carry you through. If they ask for a code, you will say your husband has it and he is on his way, but you left your wallet. You will ask to use the restroom to make a call, and you will drift through the interior hall. You will read the row doors like a phone book. You will remember that the cameras in older facilities point where the owner thinks theft comes from, not where it actually walks. Stay away from mounted corners and aim for blind spots where 2 angles overlap. Laura listened without writing anything down. She had the sort of mind that made lists in air. Where do we find the car? She asked. Eva answered without missing a beat. 2 blocks east there is a church with a thrift box in the parking lot, and a shuttle van with a magnet sign that says Faith Outreach. The magnet is from last year. The van belongs to a small contractor who runs night jobs. He leaves the magnet when he is on overnight deliveries, so it looks parked for the church. The keys are in a lockbox under the bumper with the code he never changed, 10-10-0. He is the sort of person who thinks he is invisible. That will get you to the lot and back. Put it where you found it. Do not touch the magnet. It is a signal for anyone watching that everything is normal. Laura glanced at Emma as if to say people like Eva were rare and either dangerous or essential. Both could be true. Emma asked the next question because it had been burning the whole time. Why now? Why help now? Eva did not soften. Because he left you at the side of a road and that is his warm-up. Because he met someone else who will believe him by morning. Because I do not want to watch another person learn to translate the word confused into silence. You asked why. That is enough. The call clicked off before they could say more. Emma stared at the dark screen and felt the decision choose them. Lara moved first. She pulled a drawer and found 2 pairs of winter gloves and a plain cap. She handed one set to Emma. Keep your hair under the cap, she said. No perfume, no jewelry. If a camera catches you, you look like any 2 women who hate the cold. They left the apartment and took the back stairs again. The night had thinned at the edges, that late hour when even the street cats moved slower. They walked past 3 dumpsters and a line of parked cars that shared the same dull tint of road dust. The church lot sat under two old lamps that buzzed and struggled. The van was there. The magnet sign clung to the driver door, the edges bent from rain. Laura crouched and felt under the bumper until her fingers found the small metal box. She spun the numbers and pulled. The key slid out, cold and quiet. She looked up and checked the road. Nothing moved. They climbed in. The van smelled like plywood and coffee. Laura turned the engine, and the dash lit up with a flicker. She eased out of the lot and took the long way around the block to check for tails. A single car turned at the corner behind them and kept going. Emma's heart did not slow until they hit Harlan again. The storage lot looked the same from the street, but the small window near the maintenance shed was dark now. No glow, no hint of life. Emma felt the urge to say it was a sign that they should leave. She swallowed it. Lara parked along the fence and cut the lights. "Remember the trick with the numbers," Laura said. "If anyone asks, we are looking for A27 and got B23. She handed Emma a folded receipt with a scribble that could be read either way. "Keep that in your hand. People trust paper more than faces." They crossed to the gate. A single moth circled the keypad and gave up. The fence clicked when Laura entered the posted after-hours code for deliveries, a code she had seen on a printed work order in a folder years ago and had never forgotten. Some places never changed the default. The latch loosened. They slipped through. Inside the fence, the rows made a narrow canyon of metal and concrete. Their footsteps swallowed themselves. The office window was still dark. The camera above it stared at the useless patch of pavement where the owner imagined the worst people would stand. Laura steered them along the shadow side of row A and kept her face lowered. She whispered the numbers as they passed. A21, A23, A25. The blind corner where two cameras overlapped turned a foot of space into shelter. They used it. Row B was an interior hall, past a door with a bar and a sign that said, "Alarm will sound." The alarm did not sound. The door clicked like a throat clearing. They slipped inside and shut it with a hand on the bar to keep the latch from announcing them. The hall smelled like dust and the kind of soap that leaves a film on your hands. A map on the wall showed units in neat rows. The red dot that said "You are here" was chipped off. Laura traced the path anyway. Second corridor, left. Fifth door. Emma nodded and let the numbers repeat silently until they became a path she could walk with her eyes closed. They moved. B19, B21, B23. The door looked like every other door, which made it stand out in its own way. The lock had a fresh shine. The hasp had a nick where a tool had slipped. Emma touched the metal and felt the cold come through the glove like a warning. Laura crouched and examined the base of the door where dust made a clean line. Someone had opened it recently. The sweet pattern told her the door went up and down at least twice tonight. Whenever she looked at something like this, she had the same awareness that truth had weight. It pressed down and left marks. "We cannot cut this," Emma whispered. "We cannot draw attention." Laura nodded. "We came to learn, not to open." She scanned the hall for the small motion sensor dots that blinked when a camera saw heat. Nothing blinked. A cheap system had a gift you could not buy. She took out her phone and held the black screen like a mirror near the lock. Emma watched the reflection. The glass showed the faintest outline of a key imprinted by wear. The grooves made a tiny map, not enough to copy, enough to confirm size and type. Laura took a photo of the lock face, then a second from an angle that caught a serial number stamped on the side of the hasp. She memorized it, the way people memorize a new password they know they will need at a terrible time. They stepped back as a sound came from the far end of the hall, a soft wheeled squeak like a cart moving slow. Voices, low, one male, one female, the kind of exchange that said we'd do this often. Emma felt her throat close. Laura touched her elbow and steered them into the nearest side corridor, marked C Overflow. The sign's arrow pointed to a dead end with a stack of unused doors leaning against the wall like giant postcards. They ducked behind them. The cart rolled past the hall mouth and did not turn. The voices floated and then faded. The air felt too still after. Laura checked her watch and pointed back toward the door. They retraced their steps and made it to the exterior with the same caution they used coming in. The night air felt like a new thing. They crossed the lot, slipped through the gate, and reached the van. Only when the doors shut did Emma realize she had been holding her breath since the wheeled cart. She exhaled and closed her eyes. "We did not get inside," she said. Laura shook her head. "We got enough to get inside tomorrow with a key that will not flag the system. We need a locksmith who works quiet and fast. I know one who does office parks. He will not ask questions if I bring the right story." Em nodded, then frowned. "If he comes back before morning, he will clean it." Laura put the van in gear. "Then we make him think he does not have to. Keep him occupied with a predictable problem. We will give him one in 20 minutes. They drove 3 blocks to a lit convenience store and parked where the camera could see their faces for a second by choice. Laura went inside and bought a charger, a pack of pens, and a cheap notebook. She paid cash and looked bored on purpose. Back in the van, she pulled to the curb in front of a motel with a cracked sign and a clerk who looked like he wanted to be somewhere else. She wrote a message on the first page of the notebook and tore it out. She printed clean block letters, like a person who learned to write in drafting class. The note read, "Stop using other people's lives to build yours. Roby knows your names." She folded it and slid it into a plain envelope. She addressed it to the alias on the marriage certificate, the one tied to a mailbox service. Then she wrote a second line in smaller text. "If you burn the box, the copy goes to your newest friend." Emma watched, puzzled. "Where is the copy?" she asked. Laura capped the pen. "There is no copy, but he will spend tomorrow looking for it. He will call the courier. He will try to reassure the newest woman. He will sit in his car and write a plan. He will not be at row B while we are." A shadow crossed the van's window. Emma turned and saw a figure step out of the motel lobby and pause at the curb. The man wore a hood and kept his head down. He walked past the van and turned the corner. Nothing about him screamed attention. Still, Emma felt the hairs on her arm rise. Laura slid the envelope into a mailbox slot across the street and returned with the casual air of someone who had just thrown away a receipt. They drove the van back to the church lot and put it exactly where it had sat, nose angle matching the oil stain on the pavement. Laura wiped the key once with her glove and returned it to the box under the bumper. She did not look around when she stood. People who belong in places do not check for watchers every 5 seconds. They walked back to the apartment in a line of shadow that made them part of the buildings. Inside, Emma sat at the table while Laura pulled out her laptop and a small device the size of a deck of cards. What is that? Emma asked. A scanner that reads low-energy pings from cheap trackers, Laura said. Some people stick them under bumpers, some slip them into purses. We do not go to sleep until we know you are clean. She scanned the sweatshirt, the shoes, the bag Emma had carried from the gas station with a bottle of water and a pack of crackers Laura had forced on her. Nothing beeped until she passed the device near the metal grommet of the sweatshirt's hood. It chirped. They both froze. Laura brought it close again. The card flashed. She pinched the grommet and twisted. A flake of metal came loose. Not the grommet itself, but a tiny ring seated under it. Laura set it on the table and brought the scanner within an inch. It chirped again. She stared at it like a person looking at a coin from a country that should not exist. "Where did you get that sweatshirt?" Laura asked. "From your drawer," Emma said. Laura shook her head. "I mean, before that. I bought it at a thrift store last month." She picked up the ring with a piece of tape and stuck it to the inside of a plastic sandwich bag. She wrote the time on it and a single word. Unknown. Emma's mouth went dry. "Do you think he—" Laura cut her off gently. "I think people who want to know where you are can be creative. We do not rely on thinking. We rely on evidence." She scanned the rest of the room. Nothing else chirped. She set the device down and turned off the lamp. The room settled into a softer dark. The prepaid phone buzzed again on the table. No name, just the same number as before. Emma answered and put it on speaker. Ava's voice came through, even and low. "You went," she said. "Good. He just left the mailbox service. That gives you until 8. He is angry, but he is still trying to act like a man who fixes things. That is your window." Emma asked the question she had been avoiding. "Where are you calling from?" Another pause, then the sound of traffic far away. "From where I can see the sedan with the cracked taillight," Eva said. "From where I can see the woman in the passenger seat who thinks this is a misunderstanding. From where I can decide whether to walk up to her and tell her a story about the night a door locked behind me." Emma felt the room tilt again, but for a different reason now. "If you talk to her, he will turn it back on you," she said. Eva did not disagree. "That is why I am calling you instead. You will make proof. Proof outlives charm. Proof speaks when a person like him tells a better story. Do not waste the night. He will not." The call ended. The clock on the microwave showed a time that felt unreal. Emma stood and looked at the corkboard. The names were not just names anymore. They were voices she could almost hear in the hum of the building. She turned to Laura. "We are going to open B23 tomorrow," she said. Laura nodded. "Yes, and when we do, we will not be the only ones who see what is in there." A soft knock sounded at the door. Not a fist, not a neighbor's rhythm, 2 taps, spaced like words. Laura froze. Emma's skin prickled. They looked at each other and then at the door. The chair under the handle made a tiny creak like a nervous breath. Laura stepped closer and leaned to the peephole. She looked for a long second that stretched into 3. She did not move to open it. She backed away and put a finger to her lip. Emma whispered, "Who is it?" Laura's voice came back thin and steady. "It is Melissa, and she is holding the same banker's box we saw on her porch." Melissa stood in the doorway with the banker's box clutched tight against her chest. Her eyes moved slowly from Laura to Emma, like she was counting both of them. The box looked heavy, but she didn't set it down. The hall light behind her cut a thin outline around her figure, turning her into a shape half inside, half out. Laura stepped forward until the chair under the handle scraped the floor. She whispered, Stay right there. Melissa's voice came through soft, almost hoarse. I saw your car leave the storage lot, she said. I thought you might come here. I didn't know who else to find. She shifted the box, the cardboard squeaking. He's out there, she added. I think he saw me take this. Laura didn't open the door yet. How did you know this address? Melissa hesitated. Because I followed him once, months ago. He came here. You were gone. But I remembered the door. She looked over her shoulder, as if expecting footsteps. Please, just let me put this down. Laura looked through the peephole again. The hall behind Melissa was empty. No shadows, no movement. She undid the chain and opened the door halfway. Melissa stepped in quick, pushed the door shut with her hip, and set the box on the floor like she was lowering something alive. She locked the deadbolt herself before either woman could move. No one spoke. The sound of the lock clicked once more, final, like punctuation. Laura's posture stayed still, but her voice changed, lower, deliberate. You shouldn't have come here, she said. Melissa laughed once under her breath. I've been telling myself that since I parked. But I can't keep this. He'll come for it. Emma stared at the box. What's inside? Melissa's eyes flicked toward her, sharp but not cruel. You'll see, she said, if you want to risk it. She pressed her palms against her knees and took a long breath. Laura watched her. You said he saw you. Are you sure? Melissa nodded. He followed me halfway to town, then turned off before the bridge. But he knows my car. He'll guess where I went. The room carried a quiet that didn't feel safe. The refrigerator hummed and stopped. Pipes ticked somewhere inside the walls. Laura motioned toward the couch. Sit. Melissa sat, but kept one hand on the box. Her fingers tapped against the lid. You two have been busy, she said finally. Eva told me someone would move on row B tonight. Emma froze. You know Eva? Melissa nodded. I used to. Her voice lowered. She was the one who showed me how to watch him without looking like I was watching. Laura leaned forward. Where is she now? Melissa looked at the window instead of answering. Somewhere she can see everything, she said. Emma moved closer. What's really in that box? Melissa ran her hand along the lid as if she could smooth away the weight of the question. Proof, she said. Not the kind you can hand to a police officer and expect them to understand. The kind that keeps you awake because it means you weren't crazy. Letters, receipts, pictures, things that shouldn't have the same handwriting. Then why bring it here? Laura asked. Melissa smiled without warmth. Because I don't want to hold it anymore. And because if he finds me first, at least 2 people will know what I found. Emma whispered. We could hide it. Melissa shook her head. You can't hide what he already feels missing. He doesn't need to see the box to know it's gone. He feels absence like other people feel temperature. Laura asked, how long before he acts? Melissa looked at the clock. Less than an hour. The words hit like a door slamming. Laura started clearing the table, making space. We'll open it now, she said. Melissa's hand shot out. No, not yet. If you open it before I explain, you'll only see chaos. You need the order first. Laura paused, then started explaining. Melissa folded her arms and leaned back. "Do you remember the name on the fake marriage certificate?" she asked. "Audra Lane?" Laura nodded. Melissa continued. "That's not a stranger. That's his sister's legal alias. He uses her documents when he needs a clean trail. She moved states years ago under another name, but the paperwork crosses lines. Half the accounts are hers on paper, half are his. They make each other look real." Emma stared. "You are saying it's a family thing?" Melissa nodded. "Family business. He calls it legacy. I call it recycling. Every time one of us disappears, the paperwork feeds the next version." Laura frowned. "How do you know all this?" Melissa looked down at her hands. "Because I was supposed to be the next version." She told them how, after she left him, he called months later with apologies, said he was in therapy, said he wanted to fix what he broke. He asked her to help with some old accounts, just to sign off so he could close them. He sent forms already filled out, except for one signature. She refused at first. Then he sent another message saying he had someone new, that he wanted to start fresh. The forms were for her protection, he claimed, to clear her name. She still said no. The next day, her email locked, her credit cards froze, and the police showed up asking about a storage locker in her name. "That's how I knew he wasn't finished," she said. "That's why I watched a lot tonight." Emma tried to speak, but her throat caught. Laura set a glass of water in front of her and turned back to Melissa. "What does he want?" "With the locker now." Melissa looked at the box. "To erase what's left of the first two women. There's a ledger inside this that connects his current name to theirs. If that disappears, so does the timeline. He'll rewrite it again." Laura said, "We can copy it. We can send it somewhere safe." Melissa shook her head. "He has people who scrub digital trails. You can't email something he doesn't already have flagged. You print it, you store it, you vanish. That's the rule." The building creaked. A car passed outside, and headlights brushed the blinds. 3 sets of shadows moved across the wall. Laura's, Emma's, and Melissa's. Only 3. They waited until the light faded. Melissa reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small object wrapped in paper. She placed it on the table. "This isn't from the box," she said. "It's from my apartment. Found it in a drawer I hadn't opened in months." She unwrapped it. A brass key lay on the paper, smooth from use, no label. Emma asked, "What is it?" Melissa answered, "It's the key to a safe deposit box in a credit union, under a name you haven't heard yet. Inside that is the reason Eva still watches him." Laura started to ask what that meant, but stopped when she saw Melissa's face change. Her eyes weren't on them anymore. They were on the window. A shadow passed the blinds again, slower this time, pausing halfway. No headlights followed it, just a shape blocking the weak streetlight. Laura whispered, "Don't move." She reached for the lamp and turned it off. The room fell into dim light from the microwave clock. They waited. The shadow shifted once more, then disappeared. Melissa's voice dropped to a whisper. "He's early." Emma's pulse hammered. "Are you sure?" Melissa nodded. "I know how he stands when he listens." Laura moved toward the hallway. "Get your shoes," she said. "We'll go through the back." Emma hesitated. "What about the box?" Laura said, "We take it." Melissa stood and lifted it with both hands like it was part of her. They moved toward the back door, steps careful, the floorboards giving small creaks that sounded too loud in the quiet. Laura opened the door a few inches and looked down the stairwell. Nothing. She motioned for them to follow. Halfway down, a phone buzzed in Laura's pocket. The sound tore through the silence. She fumbled for it, hit the button, and froze. The screen showed a single text from an unknown number. 4 words. "I see you leaving." She turned the screen toward them. The message disappeared as they watched, replaced by a blank thread. Melissa whispered, "He's inside already." Laura looked at Emma. "Don't run yet," she said. "Listen." The floor above them creaked. Then another sound. The slow, steady scrape of the front lock turning from the inside. The stairwell light flicked on by itself. Emma gripped the railing. Laura glanced down. The bulb above them flickered once, then went steady. And from the top of the stairs came the sound of footsteps. Deliberate, slow, unhurried. Melissa clutched the box closer and whispered what they were all thinking. "He found us." The footsteps stopped at the landing above them. 3 beats of silence followed. Laura tightened her grip on the stair rail. Melissa shifted the box to her left arm. Emma's breath came out in a short tremor. Then a voice, calm and too familiar, floated down the stairwell. "You never were good at quiet, Laura." Michael's tone carried no hurry, no anger, only certainty. He descended 1 step, then another. Each tread of his shoe echoed against the concrete like a countdown. Laura whispered without turning, "Keep moving." She pushed Emma toward the back door. Melissa hesitated only long enough to tighten her hold on the box. They reached the alley. The door banged open just as they slipped outside. Laura slammed it behind them and threw the latch. It wouldn't hold long. They ran. Gravel under their feet, breath tearing through the cold. Halfway down the alley, a shape blocked their path. A car idled at the far end, headlights dark. Someone stood beside it. A woman's voice called out, "Over here!" It was Ava, her silhouette sharp against the weak glow of a street lamp. She waved them forward. "Hurry!" They didn't question. The back door behind them burst open. Michael's shout carried into the night. Emma sprinted. Melissa stumbled once, but kept the box upright. They piled into the back seat as Eva gunned the engine. Tires screeched. The car shot forward and turned hard onto the main road. No one spoke for the first minute. The sound of wind filled the car, drowning the rush of fear. Eva drove like someone who had memorized every street and escape route. She didn't look back until the lights in the rear window were gone. Then she spoke, eyes still on the road. "You 3 attract noise," she said. Laura caught her breath. "How did you find us?" "I didn't," Eva said. "He found you. I just arrived first." She turned onto an industrial strip where warehouses stood dark and silent. She pulled behind one with a loading dock and killed the lights. "Get out," she said. "Bring the box." They followed her into the building through a side door. Inside, a single overhead lamp buzzed to life, revealing a small office space stacked with file cabinets and dust. Eva gestured to the table in the center. "Set it there." Melissa placed the box down slowly, The cardboard was scuffed, edges soft, but the tape across the top was fresh. Eva circled it once, studying the seams. "You want to know what's inside," she said. "Then listen first." She pointed at the box. "There are 3 folders. The first has letters addressed to people who no longer exist. Accounts created under names he invented from scraps of yours. The second is a list of transactions routed through a charity that never filed taxes. The third," she paused, met Emma's eyes. "The third folder has photographs, not of crimes you can report, of rehearsals. He films the beginning of every life he starts, so he can watch it later and remember which lines worked best." Emma's stomach turned. She took a step back. Melissa whispered. "I tried not to look." Eva tore the tape. The sound sliced the air. She opened the flaps and pulled out a stack of manila folders tied with string. The first page on top was a printout of a wedding license with a photo attached. Emma and Michael, smiling, a date only 4 months old. Beneath it, another set, Laura's, then Melissa's, the signatures nearly identical. "He copies everything," Eva said, "even the vows." Laura leaned in. "We can take this to the police." Eva shook her head. "He has friends there. You file a report, it vanishes. But if this goes public, he loses the mask. That's what keeps him alive." Em asked, "What do you want us to do?" Eva untied the string and flipped to the back of the stack. There was a small black flash drive taped inside a folder. She peeled it off and held it between her fingers. "This is every file I pulled before he knew I existed," she said. "Upload it, mirror it, send it to anyone who tells stories louder than he can talk." Laura looked at the drive. "Who do we send it to?" Eva smiled faintly. "Someone who doesn't believe in happy endings." Before anyone could answer, a noise came from the far end of the warehouse, metal dragging on concrete. They froze. Eva turned off the lamp. In the dark, the sound grew clearer. Footsteps, a second pair, voices low and steady. "He brought someone," Eva whispered. Melissa clutched Emma's arm. "What do we do?" Eva handed Laura the flash drive. "Hide it. If he gets this, none of us matter." She pulled a small revolver from her coat pocket, checked the chamber, and nodded toward the far wall. "There's a door behind those crates. Go when I say." The footsteps stopped. Then a beam of light swept across the room. A flashlight. Michael's voice called out, calm as before. "I just want to talk," Eva whispered. "Now." Laura grabbed the box, Emma the flash drive. They ran toward the crates. Eva stayed behind, silhouette outlined in the dim glow from the hall. A shot cracked the silence. Then another. Emma flinched but kept running. They hit the door, shoved it open, and spilled into the night behind the warehouse. The sky was turning pale at the edges. Morning coming, slow and cold. They didn't look back until they reached the fence. Another shot echoed. Then, nothing. Laura stopped, breathing hard. Emma still clutched the flash drive in her fist. Melissa held the box, shaking. From inside the warehouse came one last sound, the hollow thud of metal dropping to the floor. Then quiet. Laura looked at Emma. "Whatever happens next," she said, "this doesn't end with him." Emma opened her hand. The flash drive caught the first light of dawn. Somewhere behind them, a siren began to rise, and in the distance, the headlights of a black sedan turned onto the road. The sound of the gunfire rolled through the building and echoed off the metal walls, fading into a silence so complete it seemed to erase the air itself. Dust drifted from the rafters. Somewhere in the dark, a light bulb swung, its chain creaking with each slow arc. Eva stood behind the desk, breathing through her nose, the revolver heavy in her hand. The smell of gunpowder and dust mixed in her throat. She stepped around the table and aimed toward the aisle that led to the loading bay. Michael's voice came from the dark again, closer now, steady as ever. "You never learned to aim," he said. "You just point and pray someone flinches." Eva moved sideways, slow, keeping her weight even. Her eyes adjusted enough to catch the faint glow from a cracked exit sign at the far wall. A shadow passed through it. A man's shoulder, then part of a face. She fired once. Sparks from metal, not flesh. He laughed quietly. "Still wasting bullets," he said. Another sound joined his. A second pair of footsteps, lighter, moving along the opposite wall. Eva crouched behind a stack of crates, 2 of them. She gripped the revolver tighter, every nerve burning with the urge to move, but knowing stillness was safer. Michael spoke again, louder now, his voice spreading through the space like it owned the air. "You think you're saving them? You're not. You're just finishing my work for me," Eva answered without shouting. "They're not yours to finish." Pause. Then his tone changed. Mock concern. Almost gentle. "You should have left when I told you to." From the side of the room came a crash. The second figure had knocked something over. Eva fired toward the sound. A grunt followed, then silence again. The door to the alley banged once, as if pushed from the outside. Michael turned toward it, distracted. Eva used that heartbeat to move. She slipped from behind the crates and crossed the floor, steps quick and light. The revolver came up again. Michael saw the motion and swung the flashlight beam toward her. The light caught her face for half a second. Both of them froze, recognition cutting through the standoff like cold air. "You're bleeding," she said. He looked down. A dark stain spread on his sleeve. "You always notice the wrong things," he replied. He raised his own gun, a compact pistol she hadn't seen before, and aimed. For a moment, they just looked at each other, 2 people who once knew exactly how the other breathed. Then the warehouse filled with another flash of light. Outside, Laura, Emma, and Melissa heard it but didn't stop running. Inside, the flashlight hit the floor and rolled, its beam spinning across the ceiling. It stopped on a wall smeared with something darker than shadow. Eva crouched beside the fallen pistol, breathing hard. Her arm trembled, but she kept her hand steady. She pressed her sleeve against a shallow cut along her side. The other figure, the one who'd moved along the wall, lay face down near the shelves, still. Michael was gone. She stood, scanned the room, saw the trail of drops leading toward the back door that opened onto the rail line. The sound of a freight train approached from far off. She followed. Outside, wind off the passing cars tore at her coat. She raised a hand to shield her face. The train thundered by, car after car, each one hiding the figure on the other side. Then, between 2 boxcars, She saw him, Michael, clutching his arm, half running, half stumbling toward the darkness beyond the tracks. She shouted, but the noise swallowed the word. The last car passed. He was gone. Eva stood alone beside the tracks until the rumble faded. Then she turned back toward the warehouse, limping slightly, revolver still in hand. She stepped through the side door and looked around the room. The overturned chair, the spilled papers, the faint smell of blood. All of it now still. She picked up the fallen flashlight and swept its beam across the floor. The box was gone. A trail of prints, small and uneven, led to the open loading bay. She followed them to the edge, leaned out, and saw the taillights of a car disappearing down the service road. Not his car, a different one. Someone else had been there. Eva turned off the light. In the sudden dark, her phone buzzed once. A message, short and plain. "It's safe, trust me." No name, no number. She read it twice, then deleted it. She looked back at the empty space where the box had been and whispered to herself, almost as if trying to believe it. Maybe this time it really is. Outside, the sirens grew louder, blue and red spilling across the warehouse windows. Eva holstered the revolver, took one last look around, and walked toward the open door to meet them. Dawn came gray and heavy, the kind of light that makes every surface look cold. Emma sat on the edge of a motel bed, a towel around her shoulders, her clothes still streaked with dust from the night before. The sound of trucks on the highway filled the room. Beside the sink, Laura scrolled through a phone that wasn't connected to any name. Both women avoided the news playing on the small television near the window. The headline read only one word: warehouse. The report was brief. Police responded to shots fired near an abandoned freight terminal. One injured suspect fled the scene. No arrests. No names released. Emma turned away before the screen could show the flashing lights. Laura closed the phone and spoke without looking up. "They'll search every road east by noon." "We can't stay." Emma nodded. Her throat felt scraped raw. She still held the flash drive in her hand, wrapped in a tissue like it might burn her skin. "Where do we go now?" she asked. "Somewhere he won't think to look," Laura said, "and somewhere we can see what's on that drive before someone else does." She pulled a road map from the glove box they'd taken from Eva's car before abandoning it. She traced a line west with her finger until it stopped on a small dot. Linton, a town big enough for an internet cafe and small enough to forget strangers. "That's 3 hours, Emma said. Laura nodded. Long enough for the city to eat its own story. She looked out the window. The parking lot was empty except for a delivery van. On the far side, an old blue sedan idled for a moment, then drove away. Emma asked if they should call Eva. Laura shook her head. "Not yet. If she's alive, she'll call us. If she isn't, the next voice from her number won't be hers." They packed fast. Laura paid in cash, left no signature. The road out of town was 2 lanes of cracked asphalt bordered by winter fields. The sky opened wide and flat, the color of worn steel. Neither of them spoke for miles. When they finally stopped at a gas station outside Linton, Laura handed Emma the flash drive. "Let's see what we risked everything for," she said. Inside, the attendant waved them toward a row of computers in the back. Old machines, meant for travelers who needed to print tickets or check email. Laura paid for an hour. Emma sat at the last terminal and plugged in the drive. The screen blinked once, then loaded a folder titled Archive. Inside were dozens of subfolders, each labeled with initials and dates. Some went back more than 10 years. Emma opened the first one. Photographs appeared. Wedding portraits, vacation shots, casual selfies, all with the same man beside different women. Some were clearly younger, some older, but every smile looked rehearsed. Laura scrolled further. Financial documents, loan agreements, scanned signatures, property titles. A whole life built from borrowed pieces. Then a folder named Fitch L. Laura hesitated, clicked it. The screen filled with scanned pages, court filings, emails between lawyers, and finally a police report. The header read, "Filed by Laura Fitch, withdrawn within 30 days. She stared at it, unreadable. "He kept my case," she said quietly, "like a trophy." Emma whispered, "Keep going." Another folder opened, this one named Carver M Estate. Inside were 2 files, one labeled audio, the other letter. Emma double-clicked the letter. It was short, a single paragraph. "If you're reading this, you already know. I'm not dead, but you'll need me to be. The only way to end him is to use my name. Take what's left and make it louder than his silence." Emma looked up. "Eva wrote this," she said. Laura leaned in. The timestamp showed it was created 2 weeks ago. That's when she disappeared from every message board. Emma clicked the audio file. Static hissed, then a voice, Eva's, calm but rough. "If you're hearing this, I didn't make it out. The box isn't proof. It's bait. He built it to track who still looks for him. Every time it moves, he gets a ping. If you have it, he already knows where you are. Don't stay still. The only safety is motion." The file cut off mid-breath. Laura pulled the drive from the port like it had bitten her. The screen froze, then flashed a new message. "Connection detected." The mouse jerked by itself. The cursor moved to a new window. Text appeared, one line at a time. "I told you not to open it in daylight." Emma's hands went numb. Laura slammed the monitor's power button, but the text stayed for one more heartbeat before the screen went black. They sat in silence, the faint hum of the machines around them filling the space. Then Laura spoke, steady but cold. "He knows." Emma looked toward the glass door. The parking lot beyond was empty except for their car. Then, as she watched, a new vehicle pulled in. A black sedan with a cracked taillight. Laura's voice dropped to a whisper. "He followed the signal." Emma gripped the flash drives, eyes locked on the car outside. The engine idled, the driver unseen behind the tinted glass. Then the car door opened. The door of the cafe pushed open with a hiss of compressed air. Emma froze mid-step. The man entering wore a gray coat and dark glasses. His left sleeve rolled to the wrist. The light from outside caught the faint line of a bandage near his elbow. "Michael." He didn't scan the room wildly. He moved like a man who already knew where everything was. He ordered a coffee he didn't want, turned casually, and let his eyes rest on the back corner where the computers sat. Laura whispered, "Don't look at him." Emma's pulse hammered in her ears. The attendant behind the counter smiled politely. Oblivious, Michael set his cup down, stirred once, and reached into his pocket. When he looked up again, a phone's red recording light glowed faintly in his hand. Laura leaned close to Emma's ear. "We leave through the restroom," she said. "Take the flash drive." Emma slipped it into her boot and followed. They moved past a rack of postcards and through the narrow hallway that led to the back. The restroom door stood open. A janitor's cart blocked half the space. Laura pushed it aside just enough to reveal an emergency exit sign glowing dimly above another door. She pressed the bar. The alarm didn't sound. The door swung out into a service alley that smelled of rain and oil. They stepped through. Behind them, a chair scraped on tile. Footsteps followed. They ran. The alley opened into a side street lined with delivery trucks. Laura grabbed Emma's arm and pulled her between two of them just as the cafe door slammed open. Michael stepped out, scanning. He walked fast but not frantic, the way predators do when they've already chosen a direction. He turned right toward the lot where their car sat. Laura whispered, "We can't go back to the car." Emma nodded, chest tight. "Where then?" Laura pointed toward the bridge visible at the end of the street. "That way. If we reach the industrial park, we can circle behind the freight line. He won't risk cameras there in daylight." They moved fast, heads down. The morning traffic grew thicker, horns mixing with the hum of engines. Emma risked a glance over her shoulder. The sedan with the cracked taillight had pulled out of the cafe lot and was crawling up the street behind them. "He's tracking the drive," she said. Laura didn't slow. "Then we let him track it somewhere he can't leave." At the intersection, they turned left onto a road that sloped under the bridge. The air smelled of iron and exhaust. A freight train rumbled in the distance. Laura scanned for an opening between the fences. She found one, a gap in the chain link where a section had rusted loose. They slipped through, shoes crunching gravel. The train roared past above them, its shadow cutting the light into strips. Emma's phone buzzed once inside her pocket. She hadn't touched it in hours. The screen showed a single text, "Eva, North Tunnel." She showed it to Laura. "She's alive." Laura looked up toward the bridge. "North Tunnel's under the old rail yard," she said. "That's half a mile." They followed the fence line until they reached a service road and a rusted sign that read, "Maintenance Access, Authorized Personnel Only." The gate hung open. They slipped through. The tunnel mouth appeared ahead, a concrete arch half buried in weeds. Inside, the light thinned to gray. The air turned colder. Their footsteps echoed against the walls. At the midpoint, a figure stepped out from behind a pillar. It was Eva, coat torn, hair damp, face pale, but eyes clear. "You got my message," she said. Emma exhaled, relief mixing with disbelief. "You're alive," Eva nodded. "Barely. He grazed my side last night. I left before the police arrived. They wouldn't have listened anyway." Laura asked, "How did you know we were here?" Eva pointed to a small antenna clipped to her belt. "He built the tracker into the flash drive," she said. "I built another to follow his. I saw the signal move toward this town. I knew he'd come. A noise cut her off, the crunch of gravel behind them. Michael's voice echoed through the tunnel, calm, almost conversational. You never were good at endings. Eva motioned for silence, then turned to them. There's a maintenance ladder halfway down, she whispered. It leads to the service duct above the rail. Climb and keep moving until daylight. What about you? Emma asked. Eva looked back down the tunnel. I started this. I end it. She drew the revolver from her coat, checked the cylinder, and smiled once. Small and tired, go. Laura hesitated, but pulled Emma toward the ladder. They climbed fast, hands slipping on the cold metal rungs. From above, they could see Eva's silhouette framed by the mouth of the tunnel. Michael's shadow merged with hers. The first shot echoed like thunder. Any wake a second followed. Then, silence, broken only by the metallic echo of the train passing overhead. Emma reached the top of the duct and pulled herself into the narrow passage. Laura followed, breathing hard. They crawled until the light from a maintenance hatch spilled through. When they emerged, the sun was full above the horizon. The air felt sharp and real again. Emma looked back toward the tunnel entrance. Smoke drifted from the dark mouth, curling upward before disappearing. Laura touched her shoulder. Come on, she said. We're not done yet. They turned toward the open road. In Emma's boot, the flash drive pressed against her ankle like a pulse. Far behind them, deep in the tunnel, someone coughed once, then began to laugh. They walked until the road turned to dirt and the noise of the town fell away. The sky had cleared, the light almost too bright after a night of shadows. Laura carried a small duffel slung over her shoulder. Emma still limped slightly from the tunnel ladder, the flash drive hidden in her boot. Neither had spoken since the last sound from the darkness behind them. When they reached the ridge above the rail yard, Emma stopped. From there she could see the entire line of tracks stretching east, sunlight flashing on the metal. A single police cruiser sat near the tunnel entrance. Doors open, officers pacing in slow, uncertain circles. No ambulances, no stretchers, just investigation. Laura shaded her eyes. They'll write it off as transients, she said. Too much paperwork to look deeper. Emma's voice cracked. You think she's gone? Laura looked at the horizon before answering. Eva never left things half-finished. If she's gone, she decided how. They walked back to the road and hitched a ride with a delivery truck heading west. The driver never asked questions. He dropped them near the edge of Linton and waved once before pulling away. They found a small diner with cracked red booths and a humming refrigerator. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and old bread. They sat in the corner, facing the window. The waitress poured them both cups and disappeared. Laura slid a small laptop from the duffel and opened it. Ready? She said. Emma nodded. She took out the flash drive, wiped it once on her sleeve, and handed it over. The screen filled with the same folders as before, but this time one more had appeared, tunnel-paped that morning. Its name was a single word, tunnel. Emma leaned closer. Open it. Inside were 3 files. The first was a short video clip, grainy, low light. Eva, sitting against a concrete wall, blood on her sleeve, holding the revolver in one hand and a small camera in the other. If you're watching this, she said, voice thin but steady, then he's either gone or close enough that you'll hear him before I finish. Don't waste time on me. Upload everything. Use the name Carver and watch how many doors open. It's not about revenge. It's about proof that people like him can exist in daylight and still not be seen. She paused, looked straight into the lens. And if he's still breathing when you find this, don't run. Make him public. The clip ended. The second file was a photograph. Michael's driver's license, a close-up shot taken from the floor. His eyes half open, blood on the frame. The angle made it impossible to tell if he was alive. The third file was a document. Laura clicked it. A list of numbers, bank transfers, and beneath them, a single address. Carver Foundation, Washington, D.C. Laura stared. He turned everything into a charity, she said. That's where the money went, Emma whispered. That's where we go. They sat in silence, the sound of a spoon tapping in another booth filling the space. Then Emma said softly, "If we post this, they'll come for us." Laura smiled faintly. They already have. She uploaded the folder to 3 different cloud mirrors, encrypted each one with a passphrase that spelled Eva was right. When the progress bar reached 100%, she ejected the drive and set it on the table. "What now?" Emma asked. Laura looked at the window. Outside, a black sedan with a cracked taillight passed slowly down the street and turned the corner. "Now we disappear," she said. Emma followed her gaze. "You think it's him?" Laura didn't answer. She picked up the drive and dropped it into the waitress's tip jar, buried under a handful of coins. Let someone else decide where it ends. They walked out into the sunlight, heads low, the sound of wind in the power lines the only thing behind them. Hours later, in the diner, the waitress cleared the table. She noticed the flash drive in the jar, turned it over, saw the label Archive, and slipped it into her apron pocket, meaning to check it later. That night, when the local news replayed the story of the warehouse suspect still at large, a new video began spreading online. A shaky clip of a man's voice saying, "You think you know me, you don't even know my name." The caption read, "The Carver Files." Within 24 hours, it had 2 million views. Somewhere on a highway far from Linton, Emma woke to the sound of a notification pinging from a stranger's phone in the next seat. The headline flashed on the screen between them. Eva Fitch footage leaked. Authorities searching for Michael Carver. She looked out the bus window. In the reflection, for a moment, she thought she saw a familiar face in the seat behind her, calm, watching, smiling. But when she turned, there was no one there. She exhaled, leaned her head against the glass, and whispered to herself the only words that made sense. Maybe some stories never end, they just change names. The bus rolled on into the dark.